What's up, everybody, and thank you for listening to Mastering the Mindset. My name is Dariusdotch, and I'm an actor, hip-hop artist, and fitness and life coach. And I'm here to personally help you train and improve your mindset so that you can, 1, become the best version of yourself mentally, and 2, gain focus and motivation to be able to take action and achieve the success in life that you want and deserve. Before we get started, please like and subscribe to my channel, and at the end of this episode, if you liked it, please share it with a friend or loved one or someone who would benefit from hearing this message. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm ready to go on this journey with you, and that journey begins now. All right, and welcome back to another episode. So this is going to be a 2-part episode, and this is part 1. So be sure to check out part 2, which will come out in a couple of days. So before I get started, let me just say this, and I feel like there might be somebody out there who needs to hear me say this. So you may be showing up in your life right now and you just ain't in your groove. Things aren't going as good as they could be. Maybe you're in a down cycle. Maybe you've had some recent letdowns. Maybe you're experiencing things that are stagnant in your life. Maybe even down to anxiety and depression. I just want to be that person that reminds you that you are still going to be that person who does something special. And that this is only temporary, and that you have everything in you right now to make your life great, and that you can turn it around just the way you are. And also, what you allow to happen is only going to continue in your life, but you can't allow it to keep happening. And that can be hard to accept. But the things that are happening in our lives, we're allowing it to happen. And I know a lot of the hard things that happen can seem coincidental. Right. And it feels like they're out of our power. But I want to challenge some of that today. I'm also going to challenge you about the fact that you deserve better, but you need to believe that you deserve better in order to turn your life around. And we're going to talk about some things that may seem a little ironic to talk about because it might not seem connected, but it's actually very connected. And that thing is ego. So the truth is, ego is always false. It's always something that raises its head when we're insecure and when we're fearful. If you meet those people who we would call egomaniacs, the folks with the biggest egos, these people are the most insecure people out there. They are the most scared and the most fearful and usually the least happy. And what I'm going to talk about might throw you off, but you may be sitting there thinking, okay, there's no way I have an ego. I'm so down on myself right now, or I'm so down sometimes in general. How in the hell could I have an ego? But it's the people who are down on themselves that actually have their egos materialize and show up more often than they think. And it's actually their ego that might be holding them back. So how could someone who might have low self-esteem or somebody who doesn't have the best confidence around certain things have an ego? Let's talk about it. Because the people with high self-esteem, they actually don't have the egos. The people who are the most confident, the genuine kind, the people who are so confident with themselves and with who they are, they typically don't have egos. They don't need them. And before I keep going, let me say that I'm talking about this topic, like most of the things I talk about on here, because I struggle with it too. I don't want you to think that I got it all figured out, right? This ain't that kind of podcast. I'm on this journey with you, and we're going to figure it out and grow together. That's my goal. But people's egos show up when they're the most scared. And a lot of times it's when people start achieving. Maybe they get full of themselves. And what's really happening in their minds is they're afraid that they're going to fall down, afraid they're going to lose something, afraid they're going to have a setback. So a lot of times when we see those people, maybe our friends with that ego, it's when they're doing good. Like, look at her. She's so full of herself. She thinks she looks so good. Most of the time, she actually doesn't think she looks good. And she's looking for validation. She's looking for that validation from other people. And to us, it may seem like she's showing off or flaunting. But in reality, she needs people to tell her she looks good because she's insecure. Same thing for men. You see them when they start doing well, they make a lot of money. Then they buy the fancy car. They start to be all flashy with what they buy and what they wear, right? He's so afraid he's going to lose it all. He's so afraid that all his success he's having has exceeded who he really is. And his ego shows up because he's afraid. When you see ego, just know that it usually means fear. And that may sound like it might be a little ironic, but it's true. So let's talk about recognizing when our egos show up. Because once we figure out when it does, we can put ourselves in check and go back to being our regular selves, which is point one. You can't love yourself without being yourself. You can't love yourself without being yourself. And when our egos show up, we're not ourselves. When you let go of your ego, you can let your true self in. You can let that false confidence go. You can truly become who you were born to be. And we're going to talk about some really obvious examples of how your ego shows up. That's part one. And in part two, we're going to talk about some not so obvious ones and some ways that it might be harder to catch. Right? And we're going to talk about solutions for both of them. What's up? What's up? What's up? I want to take a quick moment to say thank you so much for listening to this episode and to also let you know that this podcast is 100% donation driven, which means it's completely funded by you, the listener. So if you like the content I have to offer, I would love it if you can make a donation and you get to pick the amount. I left links in the description of the video as well as my homepage. You can choose which way benefits you the best to donate. And if you need more options, please feel free to email me at dariusdotch@gmail.com. That's dariusdotch@gmail.com. Again, thank you so much for being here, and let's get back to it. So here are some of the obvious ways. The first sign, defensiveness. Defensiveness. You ever met somebody who is just generally defensive about stuff? Whenever you ask them a question or say something, they just seem to always get defensive. Their ego is showing up. Sometimes we need to respond to criticism with open arms. And when we get defensive about it, you better believe that's ego rearing its ugly head. So pay attention to yourself around this. The second sign, somebody who always wants to be right. That person who has to prove what they're saying is true all the time, in excess. You ever meet that person who always goes out of their way to prove what they say is true? This is because they're afraid that what they said might not be true, so it's their ego showing up. And the second part of that, the need to win in a disagreement. The need to always win an argument. This is definitely an ego issue. It's the idea that if somebody makes a great point or your point may not be right, then you have to go back and back off, and that somehow that makes you weak. This is insecurity. You don't have to always win a disagreement. It's okay to say, I'm sorry, and admit you're wrong. Admitting that you're sorry and that you're wrong is a sign of true confidence and strength, a sign of a lack of ego. Ego is the exact opposite. And I know you know these people, right? And I want you to be honest and ask yourself, is this you? It's easy to see things in other people, but the real confident people see things in themselves. Okay. Number 3, pride and boasting. Constantly bragging and boasting about your achievements, being prideful all the damn time. And this is a very obvious one. And I know you see this in a lot of people. So no need to expound on that one. That's very obvious. The next one, revenge. Do you seek revenge against people? Do you know people who constantly want to get back at people? Revenge is ego, 100% of the time. The next one, possessiveness. The desire to own something or control people. We don't own people, right? And our desire to control people, to control situations, is definitely an ego issue. That person who is trying to be possessive of you, they have an ego issue. And again, be honest with yourself. Do you do this? If you do, know that you're making somebody's life that much harder by wanting to have control of them all the time. The next one, talking down about somebody or gossiping about people all the time. That's ego. It's also a major sign of insecurity, hand in hand. Insecurity and lack of confidence go hand in hand with ego. Now, I was listening to a guy by the name of Ed Mylett, who's a highly successful entrepreneur and life coach. And he challenged his class to go a whole day without talking negatively about another person. And then he took it a step further and challenged them to go a whole day without talking about another person in general. And think about that. Could you do that? Just thinking about it is kind of a revealing fact of how often you may be talking about other people. And this is definitely true with me. I have my moments. Some of you listening right now, I have had conversations with you. So I'm calling myself out. And a lot of times we do it when we're around other people. It's easy to gossip around gossipers. I'm not calling anybody a gossiper. I'm just stating a fact that sometimes when you're around people who are the gossipers, it's easy to fall into that. So that's that one. So the next one is, and which is another obvious one, obsession with outward appearance. You ever go to the gym and see that buff ass dude always in the mirror posing, checking out his muscles, right? Or that person who always is looking at themselves in the mirror. And I'm guilty of this. I have had multiple people tell me that they see me always looking at myself in the mirror a lot. Every time I pass by a mirror, I look at it, and I never noticed this. But it is true. Or what about that person who is always posting selfies and there's always some kind of filter on that selfie? It's that constant obsession with what they're looking at in themselves. These are signs of ego. So ask yourself, is this somebody you know? Is it you? The next one, bullying. 100%. Only insecure and weak people bully people. And I'm not just talking about playground bullying, but people at your job can be a bully too. Your boss can be a bully. I think we have all had that bully boss. They were insecure. It was their ego showing up. So these are some of the obvious ways that your ego may be showing up in your life. Like I said, this is just part 1. So be sure to listen to part 2. And if you listen to this when the first comes out, part 2 is coming in 2 days. And if you're listening to it after part 2 was already released, be sure to give it a listen. It is a really good one. It's going to tie up all the things I'm talking about in that second episode. And these are important to recognize and not only take note of, but to work on them. When you start to get to the root of why you have this kind of behavior, then you'll be able to see what areas in your life need attention, what insecurities you may have. And when you're aware of these, you can work on them, and eventually you'll cause yourself to have more confidence, and you'll be showing up in the world and for yourself more uniquely and genuinely and truly be yourself. And when you have that confidence, you can go out and create the life you want. I'm not saying that confidence is going to give you success automatically, but if you have it, you won't get in your own way. And a lot of times we do exactly that to ourselves. So don't let your ego hold you back. So that's what I got for you today. If you like this episode, please share it with somebody that can benefit from this, somebody who is a friend or a family member, somebody who has goals and is trying to improve their lives. So thank you again, and let's get it in.